Well, hello there. Welcome to the Obi Thorn Alliance. I'm Jacob.
And I'm Luke.
And in today's video, we are reviewing No Time to Die, the final film with Daniel Craig at end of the era of his fine film trilogy. Like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. Hit the notification bell. Comment down below. Did you like the ending of his trilogy? So let's summarize the movie, Luke, in a non-spoiler way for people that haven't seen it yet because it just came out.
Okay, so this movie takes off 5 years after the last movie, which was Spectre. So basically throughout the 4 previous movies with Daniel Craig, we kind of get introduced to him. He becomes 007. He fights a few different villains, and then Spectre's kind of this thing in the background, and then eventually in the Spectre movie he discovers who they are, and then he discovers the main villain, and the main villain gets caught. So this movie takes off basically, at first it's straight after, so he's defeated Spectre, he's taken off with his girlfriend, they've gone on a holiday. She suggests that he goes and visits a grave of his former lover that was in Casino Royale, and that's where the movie kind of takes off. He becomes aware that Spectre is still around. Spectre it's basically he kills them or they kill him. Like, they're never going to stop coming after him. So he's kind of forced out of retirement because of that, but in the end decides to go into hiding. The movie skips 5 years. He's then has no option but to come out of hiding because the CIA come and ask him. They say, basically, we need you, like some bad stuff's going to happen and you're the only person for the job. He's reluctant, then eventually agrees to doing it. And the movie, without too many spoilers, kind of follows him helping the CIA and then coming back into the MI6 program to take on this villain that no one really knows about, except for we see in the trailers and in one of the opening scenes, he wears a mask, he kills a girl, kills this little girl's family, and he then, whilst chasing her, decides to spare her life and pull her out of, she falls through the ice on this frozen lake, and he saves her. And it comes pretty obvious from that point that she is the younger version of James Bond's lover in this movie. And so, as I said, it comes down to him. It's either he kills Spectre or Spectre kills him, and we're aware of this new villain, but we don't really know what he wants until later in the movie. What have I left out of this, Jacob?
We also get this plot with Spectre wanting something, and it's also with the scientist that gets introduced. So, and also that MI6 are behind it as well. So
yeah, this is a movie, like trying to describe in a non-spoiler way is quite difficult because there is so many good twists and turns in it that you don't want to give it away. But ultimately, it's the usual James Bond fighting a terrorist organization that's going to destroy the world if he doesn't step in. But with this, we're not sure who it is and why, and his intentions don't come clear to the end, to be honest. And without spoiling it, it sums up James Bond, played by Daniel Craig, perfectly. The movie comes to a definitive conclusion with him, with possible speculations as to how the franchise could continue.
I think there's 3 possible ways.
Yeah, but overall, it was a movie that I was really looking forward to as the most anticipated movie for this year, and I do not think it disappointed. I actually think it was a better conclusion than I thought it would be, and for a movie that was quite long, it didn't seem it. It definitely didn't seem it. But for anyone that hasn't seen it, to summarize it, it's the usual action terrorist James Bond saves the day. Yeah, and girls. Except for this time, instead of a new introduced lover like we usually have, it's a carryover, which I thought was a nice touch. You know, we haven't had any carryover partners of James Bond into this movie. Well, in the Daniel Craig one. I'm not sure about the others. I haven't seen every James Bond, but it did that quite nicely. Let's do a rating so we can then talk about it more in depth, because it's very hard not to without giving my spoilers.
Did you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So this, as I said, highly anticipated movie for me. So it could have easily disappointed because I had such high expectations, but this movie did not. It did not disappoint. And for that, I'm actually going to give it a 5.
A 5?
I haven't wanted to give anything else a 5 before. The reason why, it's because it concludes. I think I can give it a 5 because I don't have to go, well, what about the next one ruining it? What about this storyline? It really concludes for me. I think any movies beyond this, it shouldn't ruin what we've already had, and I can see them as their own bundle of 5 movies that are a really nice, long, drawn-out, singular theme almost, or you could pair them together as one big, giant movie. And for that, I give it a 5 because it summarizes it, it ends it well, it had some cool things that other James Bonds haven't had, and it's full of action. The carryover of villains was great. There was some slight nitpicks and bits and pieces I think were missing, but I still don't think it takes away from it. And I just think because of the ending, if we didn't get the closed ending like we did, it probably wouldn't have got the same rating. But for that, it's like how you feel about limited series. You know what to expect. We knew this was going to be the last one. And because of that, I'm able to confidently give it a higher rating because it closes the book on it. That's fine.
Don't know if I can give it a 5 like Luke, but it's definitely a well worth seen film. Gonna give it a 4.5. I just think can't give anything like a perfect score, and there's some nitpicks that I think the film has, but I do agree with Luke. It concludes the series well, and I think I can gladly say that the Daniel Craig movies as James Bond, I don't think there's any doubt. He's just the best James Bond, and some people might not like how they concluded the franchise. I think that's worth a debating discussion, but I'm okay with it because I think it concludes as his story arc and he goes off with a bang. So nothing wrong with that. I think it deserves what it gets. It's a good film, fantastic film, but some nitpicks that I think you would agree with, the film does have.
Yeah, totally. But both are very high ratings, and I think given the hype this movie had, the ratings live up to the expectations. I don't think many people could walk away and go, why do we wait so long for that? Because I don't think that's the case. I think it was a really, really good movie, and they found a good way to finalise the 5 and link them all together in a nice way.
Yeah.
And also set up for ongoing franchise options, which is cool.
Yeah.
So let's move into some further discussion with spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, go out and see it and then come back. If you have, let's get into some spoilers. What's your first issue with this, or something that could have made it better?
I guess for me, I very much feel like it's a 2-part film, and what I mean by that is that it's concluding the Spectre part, what it does very well, but the main problem is that we got the 2 villains in this film. It's very much doesn't develop the second villain as well, but I actually want more information about him. And it very much feels like it's a very long movie, but it feels like he's like the weakest part. But he's so interesting that he's a great villain, but I don't know, that's a nitpick there. And also, he came up with such a perfect plan. Why didn't he just kill James Bond then? I don't understand that. He's such a clever villain, but he didn't So that confused me. Do you have an answer? Like, why wouldn't he kill Spectre and James Bond and be done with it, and then win the day, kill the entire world, and
It's typical of these
Villains.
other films, the simplest answer, which would solve a lot of problems, they don't do, because then there wouldn't be a movie, would there? It always happens.
Yeah.
Thankfully it didn't, because then the movie wouldn't be as interesting. But yeah, it is an issue. But I think they could have found a way to have both, James Bond not have died in that situation, but then also not be like, why did the villain let him live? Like, there could have been some way to make it all work.
Yeah. Do you agree with me, or do you see in a different way?
No, I agree. I
agree.
agree. I don't see what's the need in keeping James Bond alive.
Yeah, that's never explained.
I guess the only thing you could think it maybe they thought that he was necessary to take out
Spectre.
Yeah, the Blomfield. Because maybe he didn't feel that the psychologists or
handle it.
Could do it, and in the end, James Bond was the one. But I think that's too forward planning. I don't think there's no way he could have predicted all those scenarios playing out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that he could have ended it there and could have been easy.
Yeah.
One talking point, I guess, for the movie, which I think is quite cool, is the introduction of these like nanobots and wiping out the world through that. I think that's a really cool idea that MI6 created this as a weapon that never misses. They were saying we could take out any of our enemies and never miss with this. And then from that, it then got hijacked by terrorists, and it was kind of a cool twist that Spectre did the hijacking and took it, but secretly the guy that they had involved was working for
the scientist.
The scientist was working for the main villain, so it was kind of like a double bluff. He used Spectre to get the virus, but then he used the scientist to take out Spectre. So it was a very clever twist in that way. The idea of this weapon that they can, through DNA, choose to take out individual people or take out subgroups or ethnicities is a really scary and interesting thought, and possibly why this movie was delayed through COVID.
I agree with you.
Whether they thought, if we bring this out during COVID, are people going to think that this is COVID and be scared? I don't know. So I think that was a really cool part about the movie. So it's not a nitpick at all. I actually think that was a cool weapon they chose, opposed to we're going to fire these weapons and take out a country. They weaponized a virus basically that could wipe out large sums of people quickly. But my only nitpick that tags onto that is that I don't understand what the villain, played by Rami Malek,
he's a great actor.
Yeah, why he wanted to do this.
Yeah.
We understand why he wanted to take out Spectre.
Spectre and the people behind the poison, behind killing his family.
Yeah, but we don't understand what he wants to do with the world. All we get is that one line where he says, you and I both want the same thing, but I just want to make the world a little bit tidier.
Yeah, tidier.
Yeah, so his idea is, I guess, that he wants to wipe out certain people and through like genocide, basically, and make the world smaller or better or
style.
Yeah, that's the only thing. It didn't explain why, so it's hard to fear a villain that we don't understand their motive.
Like I said, if they did it in a different way. I know the Spectre part is necessary, but if they spent more time with the villain that we actually wanted to see, we could have had more backstory. Why?
I would have liked to have known a bit more about his life after his family was taken out, why he became evil, and maybe a really cool explanation to why he wanted to wipe out part of the planet. Maybe he wanted to prevent global warming, or he wanted to take out or just shrink population. Like, just some little explanation would have finished it off, but we're left to imagine it ourselves. I don't really understand how he has the money he has. He owns an island and has people working for him, but are they slaves, or do they get paid? Do they want to work there? There's so many things about him and his organisation that we don't understand, so it's hard to fear something that doesn't make sense. Where Spectre was a bit more explained. That's like the only thing that doesn't add up. And my thought is that was probably in the movie, but they cut it. It was already a long movie. I feel like maybe that's something they decided to cut out.
Do you think they'll bring out like more of a storyline with him in like a director's cut or something?
I'm thinking no. Oh, actually, yeah. If they still do director's cuts anymore, like I swear things go to streaming services. But if there is a way of getting a director's cut, probably, yeah.
Did you notice in the beginning of the film that it was basically MI6 against CIA trying to hunt down the scientists when they just could have worked together? And that's when we get introduced to the female James Bond. And what was your thoughts about her?
Nothing against the actress or her being a female. I just thought they made her arrogant. It could have been a male. It wouldn't matter who they chose. Just the arrogance of it, of the character, made me go, I really hope they don't become the next 007 in future movies. They just and I know James Bond himself is arrogant, but it was a different arrogance. They're like thought she was just better than everyone, where James Bond is just overly confident. So I actually was off put by that, and I would hope that they don't go on to be the next James Bond. But I guess it was a cool introduction for possible opportunities. I guess they've added the character for feedback. Now they can go, oh, well, we've got this. Let's now see what people's reaction are. Like, people might love her, and then they go, okay, that's our answer. That's the next James Bond. So it's like a tester. Did you buy that the main villain that with Spectre could have hashed that plan to kill James Bond in prison, or? No, the whole eye thing doesn't make sense, that he was able to control and organise meetings through a robotic eye. Yeah. I think there's a few plot holes with that. Again, I think it's something that a longer movie would have explained, but I'm cool. Movie could have been 4 hours. I wouldn't have cared. If that meant getting these things explained and making it a better movie, then yeah, I would have been down for it. I already gave it a 5 stars, so I would have happily watched another hour of that movie if it added to it. Other questions or things with it. What do you think about the carryover love story? Adding a love interest that went from one movie to another? I guess that was fine. Yeah, and do you think that it was cool that they found a way to connect her father, and Spectre all to the new villain? Yeah, I guess it was necessary, I guess. Do you believe that he would have survived the gunshots that she shot in him as a kid? I guess he wore a bulletproof vest. Yeah, I guess that could have. But there was blood. Yeah. When she dragged him. And what? So he spared her life, but I think falling into frozen water, she probably still could have died of hypothermia or something like that. I know. And what do we assume happened after that? She went and sat in the cabin with her dead mum, or did he take her in and look after her? Like that is kind of question. I don't know if they needed them two to have history. Yeah. But I guess that gives a reason for him visiting her and then giving her the mask. Yeah, the spray. And then showing her the mask, so then she could kill this guy for him. But it's all a bit coincidental that she becomes the psychologist, the only one that he will speak to, but they're aware of her past and that she's like, her dad was a villain, but they're still happy to have her part of MI6. I don't know. I don't know if they'd give her that kind of clearance given her history. But, makes for an interesting story. His plan to eventually take out the last remaining person of Spectre who was in like a high security prison. I think it's cool. Yeah. Do I think someone could plan that out? Probably not. But it's cool the way it played out. What do you think about his how the final scenes play out? Oh, how we get the final boss fight, and then of course James Bond defeats the boss, but unfortunately he's not getting out of this one because being that the boss is a poison expert, he poisons James Bond. And I think it's clever that he found a way that even if he knew James Bond would beat him, that he would be able to get one last little shot in where he would scratch James Bond with these nanobots with the DNA of his daughter and his lover. So then even if he was to survive, he could never go near them or go near anyone that would eventually go near them and then pass it on.
Mm.
So it's like a really epic ending that's quite sad.
Mm.
What do you think about him sacrificing himself for others?
It's quite a noble thing. Part of me was like, oh, they're definitely making it so Daniel Craig can't return, but it's quite a noble thing that stands out for a trilogy. It's like how Iron Man went out as a character. Sometimes you need that for a hero. Like, it's nice to have the fairy tale ending, but there's nothing wrong with the sacrifice to do the greater good sometimes.
I think ultimately that's what a good hero movie requires. The hero has to sacrifice themselves because, as they say, I can't even think what movie it's from, but they talk about, like, you either live long enough, like you stay a hero or you live long enough to become the villain.
Mm.
And I guess with James Bond, not that he'd become a villain, it's like he could never have civilian life.
Mm.
Like, every time something happened, they would call upon him. And he'd eventually die in the line of work. He is inherently wanting to save people. He already, at his current age, is probably too old to actually do any of the things that they get him to do.
Mm.
So James Bond he would forever, like, he'd be 70 and be like, oh, well, I got to do my best. I got to try and save the world. And he would just eventually die. Mm. So it makes sense for him to die nobly than to just, like, get shot by, like, a random person whilst trying to take on, like, work his way to, like, the main boss or something.
Mm.
So it's a good way to close the chapter, and I guess it's better than him dying sadly through, like, getting shot or, like, the villain getting in one good, like, punch on him or something. It's just like, you know what? He saved the day and he realised that he had to sacrifice himself to save everyone else, because if he got off the island and left it, then, like, things could have went really bad for him. But I also don't see why they needed to necessarily blow up the island in such a hurry, because those ships that were coming, couldn't the Navy just taken out those ships?
Mm.
Like, the ships that were coming to collect the vials, because it wasn't like he was shooting them out, they were coming to collect them. You could just take out those ships and be like, oh, it's all good, James, we'll blow up the island next week.
Mm.
Like, I don't know why they're in such a hurry. Because, like, if they were able to blow missiles to take out an island, surely they could have taken out a few ships.
Mm.
It's a semi-plot hole. It's a bit strange.
Mm.
I think maybe I would have liked it if it was like a rocket that would shoot up and, like, sprayed the planet with these nanobots. That would have been more believable. You're like, oh crap, we really need to take this thing out. Any other plot holes or positives or issues or things you want to mention?
Did you like how we had quite a lot of different female characters involved? Like, we had James' main female interest, the new 007, then for one scene, the mission when he worked for the CIA, that they did the mission together.
Yeah, it's them being diverse. They're adding more and more female characters, female spies. They're also adding diversity in terms of skin color and ethnicity. So I think it's all a positive. It's what they do. I don't know. Long term, would female spies be as effective? I guess in a lot of situations, yes. Maybe hand-to-hand combat, you know, they could take out your average kind of villain, but they come up with someone like in Spectre where he took on Batista or something, where even James Bond struggled, you know, like I think a female spy would probably struggle badly in that situation. Like, even if you found the strongest female in the world, you know, some of these henchmen are like super strong, like they would struggle. So, you know, it's cool in theory, but I don't think you'd have your spy organisation operating with your female being your best hand-to-hand combat soldier.
Did you see the twist coming that also the one that was helping Felix for the CIA, his person was also working for the main villain as well?
I don't know if I saw it coming exactly, but I was always skeptical of him. He just seemed odd. Whether I thought he was going to be bad or whether I just thought he was going to be useless, there's something about him though.
Yeah.
And he felt like he was too involved.
Yeah. Asking too many questions.
Yeah. And I guess we don't understand why he wanted to be involved. Like, was it through threats? Was it through promise of money? Or did he also want to see the world in turmoil? Like, I don't know. Like, I guess the motive, I don't understand the motive of the scientists either. I think I would have liked to have known why, because why would you want to join this evil person's organization willingly? Like, you're like, oh yeah, do you want to help us like destroy the world? Yeah, sounds good to me. Like, why? Unless you were evil, threatened, or like promised crazy money, I don't know why you would willingly do it. So yeah, I guess I would have rathered a bit of motive to him. But you know, that was cool. Have any favourite scenes that stood out for you?
I guess of course the final scene the final action scene. Was it believable that James Bond killed all the henchmen? Don't know, but James Bond is highly trained, skilled fighter. Maybe the scene when all the Spectre agents died, like that was probably the most surprising scene. What was yours?
I like the car scene, like when he was getting chased in his Aston Martin and then eventually got cornered and they're like shooting the windows and she's like, oh, like do something, James. Like, okay. So he flicks the switch and puts on the machine gun and spins the car out and takes them all out. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, that was probably my favourite scene. The scene in the boat kind of annoyed me. I think a lot of movies where like boats are going down and people are in there and they're capsizing, they're so unbelievable. Like, I don't think people realise if you're in a boat and it's going underwater, like you're not getting out. Like you're not opening those doors. You are so disorientated as to where you are. The water fills up so quick. It's dark. Like, I just don't believe anyone's surviving that. It just, they do it in movies so often. I just don't believe it. But you know, magic of Hollywood. That's what happened. And then even that, getting out of the boat, like knowing which way's up and which way's down, and I guess how easily he just happened to get to the surface, and then there was the life raft, and then a cruise ship just picked him up. Apparently, like he wasn't out there very long. Like, in reality, even if he survived that, he's in the middle of the ocean. He probably would have just died of dehydration, and no one ever found him. But he was found pretty easily, and we didn't mention much about it. It just happened. Yeah.
Felix died as well, and
I also think when he went to that Spectre party, wouldn't all those people know who James Bond was? Like,
it did seem strange.
Like, they all looked at him. Wouldn't you think they were like, that's James Bond, kill him?
Yeah.
They just let him keep walking around. Unless they were told that was the case, like, don't get involved with combat with him. The plan is I'm going to kill him through this nanobot stuff. But that was a cool twist. Any other final thoughts?
Guess we should talk about the free options that they have just quickly. They could go with the 007 that they cast. They could go with James Bond's daughter, and if you stay for when the movie finishes, it says James Bond will return. So I don't know if they already have their casting of the male. So from the free options, which one would you like to see them do?
I would like them to give it to someone else, but continue on with the same world, like the same characters, the same continuation of timeline. Whether it's the new female character or whether it's Idris Elba or whether it's someone we don't know yet, I'd rather that. I don't want to see them restart again. Like, recast a new person to be James Bond and then see, like, them restart from the beginning of him becoming a 00 and all that. I'd rather it continue on and we get someone else and their name not be James Bond. Their name could be, I don't know, Steve Rogers for all it matters, and they just happen to be a spy. Like that, I would rather that. And then the legacy of James Bond lives on. They're like, oh, James Bond was like, he did this and he saved the world, but we need to move on. We need a new 00. But the fact that it said James Bond will return makes me think that that's not going to be the case. They're going to recast a new James Bond. Because why else would they say it? Because the movies are technically called like 007, No Time to Die. Like sometimes they don't really have James Bond in the title. So like that James Bond is a character. So I think the fact they mention he will return means we're not going to we're going to get like a recasting of James Bond. What would you rather see?
Maybe go into a cast someone else, but maybe like 5 years down the line, and then it's being like well known that James Bond or Daniel Craig's versions of James Bond has sacrificed himself. Then we get this new recruit to kind of take on the mantle, and then kind of, I don't know, something more interesting than just recasting.
Yeah, I don't want to see a recast. I don't like that. Because we just start again? We just pretend that whole thing never happened? Like, I don't like that. I think that was a really good 5-movie collection.
Well, thank you for helping, Luke. Hope you enjoyed the review and discussion. Let us know your thoughts if you agree or disagree. Let us know between the 3 options what you think is more applaudable, and they're probably just going to recast James Bond. Doesn't matter what we think. They're probably just going to recast and just tell the story again. Like and subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.